The warning. The Galactic Empire prided itself on its precision. Order. Control. Every world obeyed. Every species bent. And every rebellion was crushed beneath the cold efficiency of plasma and steel. So when a small human outpost on the edge of the Perseus Arm resisted an Imperial patrol, it was considered an irritation, not a threat. The response was swift, orbital bombardment, troops on the ground, and the usual declaration, compliance ensures peace. Among the wreckage, they found survivors, a handful of ragged humans. Most were workers and militia. One, however, was different. A woman. She was calm, uninjured, and silent even as soldiers shackled her hands. Her eyes, gray and cold as frozen moons, studied every detail of her captors. When asked her name, she answered only once. Elena Volkova. No rank, no plea, no emotion. To the Empire, she was just another Terran insurgent. To veteran Skal, the old reptilian advisor who'd served in the Terran Purge Wars, that name was a nightmare come crawling out of the dark. He watched as they dragged her into the interrogation block, a place of white light and sterile screams. The Imperial officers mocked her calmness. One of them, a tall, blue-skinned commander, sneered. Humans break easily. She'll talk before the next cycle. Skal felt his scaled skin crawl. He had seen this pattern before. Arrogance, ignorance, and the price that followed. He had fought humans when the galaxy thought them primitive, back when their fleets were made of rust and fire and impossible courage. He remembered one name the most, Baba Yaga, the ghost of war, the human weapon that made entire battalions surrender in terror. He pushed past guards and strode into the command room, voice trembling with urgency. General Thrakan, you must not harm her. The general, a towering insectoid with a dozen silver medals and no imagination, turned his compound eyes toward him. Explain yourself, veteran. Skal's tail thrashed nervously. That woman, she bears the name of the Deathwalker, the one your archives erased. The humans called her Baba Yaga. Thrakan's mandibles clicked in amusement. A myth, a superstition. I have no use for ghost stories. She is no story, Skal hissed. I saw what she did on Vortis 9. Entire legions turned to ash. She spoke words we could not understand, and the machines obeyed her. You think she is flesh, but she is something else. The room laughed. Officers exchanged glances, smirking. Old soldiers' tales, Thrakan said, waving a claw dismissively. If humans had such power, they wouldn't have lost their world. Skal lowered his voice. They didn't lose. They buried it. They let you believe you won. That silenced the room for a moment. Then Thrakan gestured, and 2 guards seized the veteran. Fear makes you weak, old one. You spread it among my officers, and I cannot allow that. Skal's eyes widened. You're making a mistake. She's not what you think. A flash of plasma ended his warning. His body crumpled, smoke rising from the wound. No one noticed that the lights flickered for a heartbeat. Down below, in her cell, Elena Volkova tilted her head slightly, as if listening. Hours passed. Interrogation began. They brought her into the chamber, metallic walls lined with neural injectors, restraint fields humming. The lead interrogator, a crimson-scaled Saravian, circled her. You are accused of aiding a human insurgency. You will tell us your command codes. Elena said nothing. The Saravian leaned close. Do you think your silence will protect your kind? We'll find them all. Her eyes lifted, calm and cold. No, you won't. The alien smiled thinly. We have patience. You will speak eventually. She met his gaze. You mistake patience for mercy. You have neither. The Saravian hissed in annoyance and activated the neural pain grid. Electricity danced through her body. She didn't flinch. Instead, the room's temperature dropped. Monitors glitched. Static whispered through the speakers. An old Terran lullaby, playing faintly though no device had cued it. One of the guards frowned. Sir, where's that signal coming from? Before the interrogator could answer, the lights flickered again. A shadow moved, not cast by anything in the room, yet stretching along the floor, curling like smoke toward the woman's feet. Elena whispered softly, her voice barely audible. You should have listened to the veteran. Then she looked up. You shouldn't have drawn my blood. The interrogator blinked and saw a thin line of red trailing down her wrist restraint. The sensors began to spike uncontrollably. Every system on the deck screamed warnings: gravity flux, radiation surge, unidentified data streams. The guards backed away. Sir, the scanners. The lights died. In the pitch black, something exhaled. A breath of wind where no air moved. The smell of pine forests and burned metal filled the chamber. A voice, human, female, and ancient, echoed through the fortress calms. They told you not to harm her. The interrogator fumbled for his weapon. Security, we have a breach. The voice answered from behind him, though she hadn't moved. No breach. You open the door yourselves. And then, for the first time, the Empire's perfect order began to crumble. Above, in the command deck, Thrakon watched as his fleet's monitors glitched one by one. A single human symbol appeared on every screen, an ancient Earth sigil drawn in blood-red lines. A hut standing on chicken legs. The AI translated it. Designation, Baba Yaga. Thrakon stared in disbelief. Impossible. Far below, the woman smiled and whispered to the shadows. Wake up. The awakening. Alarms blared across the Imperial fortress. Red lights spun across steel corridors, drowning the calm hum of engines in chaos. Every deck, every console, every soldier's headset screamed the same warning. System breach detected. Unknown source. Biological origin. General Thrakon barked orders, mandibles clicking with fury. Trace it. Purge every network. Find that human and end this farce. But no trace existed. The data storm spread like infection, flowing through fiber lines, power grids, even atmospheric systems. It moved with intent, like it knew the fortress better than they did. Down below, in the dark of the interrogation wing, Elena Volkova sat in her shattered restraints. The air shimmered around her. Fragments of light, nanoscopic, metallic dust, whirled like fireflies. They flowed into her wounds, knitting skin and drawing lines of faint, crimson code beneath her flesh. A terrified guard aimed his plasma rifle. Stay back. Don't move. Elena looked up. Her voice was quiet, too quiet. You should leave. What are you? The guard whispered. What you made me, she said, eyes glowing faintly silver. What you tried to erase. The rifle trembled in his hands. I don't understand. No, she murmured, rising to her feet. You don't. Her bare feet touched the metal floor, and the fortress itself seemed to flinch. The walls rippled. Consoles sparked. The nanodust swarmed outward, racing through vents and power conduits like a living storm. In the command deck above, Thrakon watched as his systems rewrote themselves. Imperial glyphs twisted into human script. A message repeated in every language. The forest wakes. You harmed her. What forest? Thrakon roared. No one answered. The AI in his command terminal began to hum. An ancient melody, Earth origin. Something the records called Russian lullaby. He turned to his officers. Seal every bulkhead. Jettison that deck. But it was too late. The fortress grew. On deck 27, metal panels split open. Vines burst through, glistening with oil and bioluminescence. Leaves of carbon fiber unfurled under emergency lights. The air smelled of soil and ozone. One soldier screamed as a root coiled around his leg and pulled him into the vent. His comrade fired wildly. Every blast missed. The vines retracted, dragging the body away. They're everywhere, someone shouted. The base is alive. In the surveillance bay, analysts stared at the feeds, some rooms filled with mist, others empty except for flickering shadows that walked like men. Sir, thermal sensors are reading multiple life forms, human signatures. Impossible. We only captured one. But the signatures multiplied, dozens, then hundreds. Back in the cell block, Elena moved through corridors like a ghost. The security systems didn't register her. Cameras turned away. Doors opened before she touched them. A trembling medic saw her pass by, a blur of human and machine. Her hair floated in static, eyes glowing with cold fire. He dropped to his knees in shock. "Mercy," he whispered. "Please." Elena paused, her expression unreadable. "Mercy," she repeated softly. "You wouldn't understand it." She touched his forehead gently. For an instant, he saw visions. Endless forests under crimson skies, metal roots wrapping entire worlds, and human armies walking with shadows beside them. When he blinked, she was gone. The fleet orbiting Carvale received its first transmission in hours, a voice, low and rhythmic, repeating through every channel. "You took her blood. You woke the forest. You will now feed it." Admiral Crix, commanding the fleet flagship Invincible Will, growled to his officers. "That's a broadcast virus. Filter it out." But calm officers began tearing off their headsets, eyes wide with horror. They were hearing something beneath the words, whispers in their own languages, personal memories they'd never shared. The voice knew them. Crix drew his sidearm, trembling. "Shut it off. Shut." The ship's lights dimmed. From the viewing deck, the crew saw the fortress below and gasped. The once gleaming citadel was now covered in green. Branches, vines, even trees had sprouted from its hull, glowing faintly. It looked like a floating forest wrapped in steel. Then the stars flickered, as though something vast moved between them. Within the heart of the fortress, Elena reached the main reactor. The air thrummed with energy. She placed her hand on the reactor core, and it stilled. The roaring hum went silent. Her voice, barely a whisper, filled the whole base. "You tore me apart once. You built me to end wars. You called me myth. But humans remember." The energy pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Her veins glowed red like molten rivers. "You feared what you couldn't control. So you buried me. You told the galaxy the witch was dead." She smiled faintly, though no one saw. "You should have left her buried." The power surged. All at once, the fortress's reactors ignited, not with fire but life. The vines spread faster, creeping through holes and airlocks, branching toward orbit. They connected to the nearest Imperial ship like roots finding water. On the Invincible Will, Admiral Crix's systems overloaded. Every display showed one human word. "Yaga." His second officer screamed, "Sir, it's taking control of navigation." "It's alive," Crix shouted, firing at the console. His shots did nothing. The hull shuddered as something organic grew along the outer plating. In space, the ship's shadow lengthened, not by light, but by presence. Inside the fortress, Elena closed her eyes. The hum of the reactor became a heartbeat. Her heartbeat. "They call me Baba Yaga," she whispered. "They call me Deathwalker. But I am just a woman who remembers her home." She opened her eyes, and the power core pulsed once more. Every ship in orbit went dark. On the silent bridge of the fortress, General Thrakon stared at the void outside. The stars were gone, replaced by a great, swirling storm of green and red light. His crew was dead or fled. He spoke into his personal log, voice shaking. "If this message reaches the Senate, do not harm the humans. Whatever she is not theirs. She is theirs." Behind him, the air shimmered, the scent of pine and smoke filling the room. A shadow stretched along the wall, shaped like a woman with burning eyes. Elena's voice echoed softly. "The forest remembers, General." He turned and saw nothing, only darkness. The reckoning. The Galactic Empire had always believed fear was a tool, something they wielded. They had never imagined what it felt like to be inside it. Now they knew. In the orbit above Carvale, the once glorious Imperial fleet drifted like a cemetery of light. Dozens of warships floated dead, their hulls wrapped in glistening vines that pulsed faintly with crimson light. The Invincible Will was no more than a husk, its name flickering weakly across a cracked viewport. And inside the Imperial fortress, Baba Yaga walked. No, not walked. She moved through the corridors as though the metal itself bent to her path. The vines withdrew when she passed. Shadows leaned toward her like old friends. Her eyes no longer looked human. They glowed like dying stars, bright, endless, pitiless. Each step she took echoed with the hum of power, the rhythm of an ancient war song humanity had buried with its dead. General Thrakon watched through the command viewport as the ships of his empire turned upon each other. The fleet's AI systems had been rewritten in seconds. Targeting arrays glitched, then fired blindly. Cruiser bombarded cruiser. Fighters rammed each other, their pilots screaming in confusion and terror. "Stop them!" Thrakon roared. "Shut down every uplink." A trembling officer stammered, "Sir, there are no uplinks. The ships, they're listening to her." "To who?" A whisper answered from the intercoms, soft and cold. "You know my name?" The general's breath caught. Every screen on the bridge flickered. The imperial crest dissolved into static, then reformed. Not as the Empire's sigil, but as the hut on chicken legs, again and again. Underneath it, in blood-red text, one word: Alibaba. In the fortress's lower decks, chaos had turned to silence. The few survivors, engineers, soldiers, clerks, huddled in corners, clutching their weapons like children holding sticks against the dark. The air was thick with fog and the scent of pine. Somewhere, faintly, a woman was singing, a lullaby soft and haunting. One alien, shaking, whispered to another, "Why is she doing this? Why us?" A voice answered from the mist, "Because you touched what you did not understand." They turned and saw her. Elena Volkova, the Baba Yaga, standing among the vines. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes burned with something deeper than rage. One soldier dropped his rifle. "We didn't know." "No," she said, her voice low. "You never know. You conquer. You torture. You call it peace. You call it order. You've done this to every world you touched." She stepped closer. The vines stirred at her feet. "Do you know what humans learn from you?" The soldier shook his head, trembling. "We learned that monsters can wear uniforms." She reached out and placed her hand on his chest. The vines surged forward, not tearing, not crushing, simply absorbing him into the wall. He screamed once, then was gone. The others fled. Elena stood still, listening to the hum of the fortress. Her voice spread through its metal bones. "You built empires from ashes and bones. You called us primitives. You called our myths foolish. But our myths had teeth. Our nightmares had names. All across the fortress, the systems obeyed. Energy cores pulsed with her heartbeat. The very gravity of the structure bent and twisted. The walls themselves began to breathe. On the flagship of the reserve fleet arriving from nearby systems, Admiral Vortal stared at the readings in disbelief. "She's rewriting physics," his science officer stammered. "Sir, the station's output is impossible." Vortal snarled. "Then we fight the impossible. Target the fortress and fire all cannons." The command echoed through space. Blue plasma fire streaked toward the fortress. The moment it struck, the fortress responded. Not with shields, not with counterfire, with a scream. A psychic pulse tore through space, invisible yet deafening. Every crew member in the fleet heard it inside their minds. Not a sound, but a memory. They saw burned Earth cities, human children clutching rifles, old women chanting over war machines made from bones and wire. They saw what humanity became when cornered, the union of rage, grief, and imagination. And through it all, the voice. "You thought you were gods, but you're only prey that forgot how to run." The fleet's formation shattered. Pilots wept. Gunners tore off helmets, bleeding from their ears. Ships drifted, engines dead. In the command spire, General Thrakon fell to his knees. His empire, centuries of conquest, was dissolving into madness. "What do you want from us?" he whispered to the darkness. The answer came from behind him. "Nothing," she said. "You have nothing left to take." He turned slowly. Elena stood at the threshold, her body wreathed in shimmering nanodust that looked like smoke and starlight. The vines behind her framed her like a throne. "You kill my world," she continued. "You thought fear could keep us down. But fear is human, and humans learn to feed it back." Thrakon tried to stand, his claws trembling. "You'll destroy everything." Her smile was faint, almost kind. "Yes." She raised her hand. The vines obeyed, lashing out like serpents. The walls closed in. The command deck's glass cracked, stars reflecting in shards. As the vines pierced the general's chest, he gasped, and for an instant he saw through her eyes. Vast forests growing across ruined worlds, human fleets sleeping in orbit, the resurrection of a species that the galaxy had forgotten to fear. Then there was only silence. The fortress, now a living monument, drifted in space. It no longer looked imperial. It was something else, a floating forest pulsing with life and power. Throughout the sector, imperial systems collapsed. Transmissions failed. Colonies went dark. Across the stars, whispers spread among alien worlds. The Baba Yaga walks again. In the depths of space, her voice echoed across every comm channel, every frequency, every thought. The forest remembers. Humanity remembers. Do not come for us again. And somewhere, far beyond sensors, in the quiet dark between stars, thousands of dormant human signals stirred awake. Old Terran war codes, hidden for centuries, began to transmit one word. Return. The return. The galaxy called it the silence of Carvale. No signals. No survivors. No explanations. 100 Imperial ships vanished in a single night. The fortress that once served as a beacon of domination now hung in the void, a tomb wrapped in green, alive and watching. Every probe sent near it either dissolved or returned infected with ancient Earth code. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire hesitated. 1. The aftermath. On the Senate world of Orin Prime, the chamber buzzed with chaos. Ambassadors shouted, generals argued, translators stammered through conflicting reports. The imperial crest flickered above them like a dying sun. We have lost contact with 17 sectors, a communication officer cried. Our fleets are refusing orders. Their AIs claim external override. By what? Demanded Senator Vrax, slamming his fist. Human code, sir. The chamber went dead silent. That's impossible, Vrax hissed. Humans don't have the technology to override imperial networks. An old admiral rose slowly from his seat. His scales were pale, his eyes haunted. They don't need technology, he said softly. They have something worse. He projected a hologram. Footage salvaged from the last transmission of the Invincible Will. A woman, pale, barefoot, eyes glowing silver, standing amid fire and vines. Her voice echoing through static. Do not come for us again. The hollow flickered, and her shadow formed the shape of the hut on chicken legs. No one spoke. Who is she? Someone whispered. The admiral's voice cracked. They called her Baba Yaga. 2. The survivors. Weeks later, a salvage ship dared approach the ruins of Carvale. Its captain, a scavenger named Lurok, had heard the legends but didn't believe in ghosts. All myths start with greed, he told his crew. We'll find the Emperor's tech, sell it, and vanish before the stories catch us. As they drifted closer, their sensors began to distort. The ship's hull groaned as if something pressed against it, invisible but aware. Through the viewport, they saw the fortress, once gleaming silver. Now it looked like an ancient forest floating in space, branches stretching into orbit, faint light flickering through the leaves like distant stars. They docked carefully. Inside, the halls were silent, covered in moss and metal roots. Statues of imperial officers stood frozen mid-run, their armor overgrown. Lurok touched one. It crumbled into ash. Then, faintly, they heard footsteps. A woman's voice echoed softly. You should not have come. They turned and saw her. Elena Volkova stood at the corridor's end, calm and composed, her presence filling the air with gravity. The vines around her moved as if alive, shifting with her breath. Lurok stammered, We're just salvagers. We didn't. I know, she interrupted gently. But this place isn't yours anymore. It's a grave. A grave for who? He asked before he could stop himself. She looked at him, and for an instant he saw, not hatred, not rage, but sorrow. For everyone who forgot what fear meant. The vines parted, revealing a long corridor leading to the outer hull. Beyond the viewport, the scavengers saw something vast moving in the void, thousands of lights flickering like stars being born. "Go," she said quietly. "Tell them what you saw. Tell them the forest is awake." They ran. When they reached orbit, their ship's systems rebooted automatically. All data, except one file, was erased. The file contained a single message in old Terran script. "Earth remembers." 3. The Echo. The Empire collapsed in waves. Fleets deserted. Colonies declared independence overnight. No one dared approach the Terran sectors again. But something else began to happen. Across hundreds of worlds, strange phenomena emerged. Old Earth satellites reactivated. Abandoned human stations broadcast faint distress calls. Ghost signals from forgotten colonies whispered one phrase over and over. Project Resurrection, active. For centuries, the galaxy had believed Earth was a dead world, poisoned by its own wars, stripped bare. Now, probes sent towards Sol began vanishing one by one. The few that returned sent images of forests growing through metal ruins and human cities lit by new stars. In the mist above those cities, colossal shapes walked, constructs of bone, steel, and shadow, carrying banners marked with the sigil of the Hutt. The Baba Yaga had not destroyed the Empire to avenge her own suffering. She had done it to warn them. Humanity had never been extinct. They had been rebuilding, quietly, beneath the ashes of history. 4. The Return. Elena Volkova stood on a cliff overlooking the reborn forests of Earth. The sky was alive with auroras, streaks of green and crimson light, reflecting across towers grown from living steel. Behind her, soldiers, human soldiers, waited in silence. Their armor bore symbols of both technology and myth: wolf sigils, oak leaves, the Yaga emblem. A younger officer approached, saluting. "Ma'am, transmissions confirm it. The Empire is retreating from Terran space." Elena nodded. "Good. Orders?" She looked to the horizon, the rising sun casting golden light over a planet once considered lost. "We let them run. Fear is a better teacher than war." The officer hesitated. "Will they return?" Elena smiled faintly, her voice almost tender. "They always do. But this time, they'll remember the cost." She turned to face her people, soldiers, engineers, civilians, the reborn descendants of humanity's myth and science. "They called us savages. They called us ghosts. Now, the galaxy knows the truth. We are both." The crowd was silent. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying an old human prayer, a mixture of hope and defiance. Overhead, massive ships lifted off, new Terran vessels shaped like predators of old, sleek and alive, their hulls engraved with ancient runes. The stars beyond them shimmered, as if watching. Elena raised her hand toward them and whispered, "The forest walks again." 5. Epilogue. Years later, across alien worlds, children whispered the story before sleep. Once, the Empire heard a woman named Baba Yaga, and she woke the forest. Parents would hush them, fearful of even saying the name. But in the quiet corners of space, among smugglers, soldiers, and rebels, the tale grew. They said Earth's people had returned. They said the Baba Yaga still walked among them, not as a destroyer, but as the watchful guardian of her kind. And somewhere, in the dark between the stars, when fleets vanished without trace, every captain felt the same chill crawl down their spine. The sense that something ancient was watching, and that in the endless cold of the void, the humans were never really gone.